right, good morning. Welcome to another episode of Holy Unapologetic. My name is Marcus. I'm here with my good friend and collaborator, Ace. How are you doing today, Ace?
So good. And we have one of the best guests ever on today's show. I love Orpheus so much, so I'm super excited that he's here to join us today.
I hope you'll love me after this podcast.
So exciting. We've had a lot of Orpheus adjacent guests too. So it feels like we're finally coming to this big moment here. So Ace, why don't you do us the honors of introducing someone you've actually known for a bit, Orpheus Black.
Yeah, so Orpheus was one of my very first moments in kink. And I had heard about this guru that was just super wise. And I was like, all right, how do I get a chance to, meet this person? And I got an invite to one of his kink events that he had in LA. And I remember walking in, and I think my jaw hit the floor because I saw all these sex toys and, spanking benches and sex machines. And I was like, what did I just get myself into? But
I love to be referred to as sex machine. Thank you. Nomenclature.
So good. Yeah, and I felt incredibly comfortable, right? Kink is something that can be really scary and be one of those things where it's like, man, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. But Orpheus really has this calming demeanor about himself, and he's super wise, and he's been in this field for so long. He's a leather holder. He can tell you all about all the competitions he's been in and how he's been the man in the room as the dominator. But anyway, I really enjoyed my time with him in this space, and actually I took a few of his courses afterwards because he's just so grounded and present in his interactions with people. And so Orpheus, I just want to say thank you for giving me such a safe space to drop into my body and experience pleasure in a whole new way that I didn't understand or know was even possible.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That was a phenomenal intro. Forget all the other intros. That one right there, that was a great one. I love that. Well, you know what? Thank you for having me. It is a pleasure to show up and be here with you. You have always been a delight, a wonderful person in the room, a great spirit. And I can't wait to hear all the phenomenal stuff that you guys have in store for this podcast. And also to see all the things that you're doing in the field, like you're going out there and you're really kicking butt and taking names. So I'm excited for what's going to happen here and what's happening in the future.
So one of the things that I didn't realize about kink was how it was such a healing modality. And I would love for you to speak to our listeners. If they've never done kink before, they've never put themselves into a space where they've, tested out or, started moving towards their edges in this kink realm. Can you tell us a little bit about how kink can be a healing modality for them?
Thank you for that. Here's the thing. I came up with this idea that kink is not therapy, it's therapeutic. And from that, people started kind of riffing on this idea that it's a healing modality. I think that it's a healing modality as long as the intention is to heal, right? If we just play for the sake of playing and we're just doing stuff and we're willy-nilly, then we're treating this intimate exercise as if it's just a yoga, as if it's just a calisthenic, as if it's just sex. The intention, the focus has to be on repairing that aspect of the psyche, of the body, of the beingness that requires repair. Because we think healing in the same way we think power, ethereal, God, ethereal, spirit, ethereal. Healing is the area with which needs to be repaired. So, what is the ritual that we are going to create in this moment that helps to repair the trauma, the fissures, the rips, the gouges that someone has acquired through living the life that they found themselves in. To me, that's how it begins to be a healing modality, right? So I want to make everything concrete. If you can't live it, if you can't experience it, if you can't touch it, it's not real. So healing has to be a very tangible and tactile thing that a person is capable of using, leveraging, enabling, turning on and off in order to produce the outcome that they're looking for. And if the outcome is healing, if the outcome is sexual exploration, if the outcome is deviancy, if the outcome is just spicing up your marriage, then it has to be the center of attention.
I like that. Can you expand about that idea of turning it on, but also turning it off? Are there times when we can kind of
Yeah.
lean into that healing, but also when we take a break? Because that's come up for us in the podcast before too.
Yeah. People have conscious ins, but not conscious outs. So when do I hand power back to my person? When you get a massage, there's a very clear in. I paid my money. I'm on the table. There's a very clear out. They make me an appointment. They do a thing. They say, have a wonderful day. You're on your own. Most people keep the connection and they feel like it's a frayed edge because we did the aftercare, which is still touching and talking and intimacy. I'm still being led. But what is the conscious closing of our session? Right? When you go to a doctor, they still do a follow up. There's still a check in, there's a check up, right? There's that connection, right? But they're always consciously open and consciously closed. When the part of healing happens, we have to understand at which point I'm handing the responsibility for your own health, wealth, and well being back to you at the end of the session, right? Or you can unconsciously create an abandonment because you never gave them back responsibility. You never gave them back their submission. You never gave them back their power. They don't have a way of being in the room and being in a way because they want to defer to you. They want to still think about you. They're still prioritizing you. They're doing the what would my dom do? Right? So how do we close those sessions ethically, consensually, right? And in a way that helps facilitate the closing. Again, I'll even make the analogy with a band-aid. Okay, you've done the cleaning, you've done the washing, you've removed whatever foreign debris. Now we put the band-aid on it. Maybe we give it a little kiss. It's like, okay, you're good. Go out and have fun. Do your thing. Right? You have to close it. You have to make sure it's ready to be handed off back into their care.
Mm. Do you mind explaining what that aftercare is? Because that was actually something I only really learned about once I went to the Erotic Blueprints conference. That was new to me, but it's such a beautiful concept of helping people reground. Would you mind defining that for our audience?
Yeah, so aftercare is the point with which the scene is coming to an end and a person may be still in activation. There's a difference, first of all, there's a difference between triggered and activated. Okay. Triggered happen when a familiar stimulus that fits a certain pattern within the frame of my psyche triggers a certain set of responses in me. So in the same way you take a trigger, you pull the trigger. Once I pull the trigger, it hits this, it does this, and then this shoots out. There's a pre-established framework for how this thing is going to go once I receive the stimulus, pre-existing. Activated means I have feelings and emotions that I have no idea where they're coming from. This is all new experiences. Everything's up in the air. I have no processes. I have no framework. I have no way of grounding. I don't know what these feelings are. Aftercare helps to center them, center their experience, normalize their experience, help them understand and integrate their experience, right? And ultimately bring them into a space of co regulation where they can feel like everything is okay. Everything that happened was within the framework and consent of what we're doing, if it was, right? And to help them really take into the process of how to navigate these feelings and emotions. A lot of people just kind of lovingly pet. I'm just going to pet you. I'm going to give you some chocolates. I'm going to help your body regulate. But that doesn't mean that they're emotionally finding regulation, right? This is where the debrief happens. This is where the talk happens. This is where they get to ask the questions. There was that moment where you hit me real hard and I felt like I was a bad girl. It put me back in my trauma. It felt like I was a bad boy. It put me back in my trauma, right? I was a bad pet and it put me back in my trauma. Did you mean to hurt me? Was I bad? Did I really not do a good job? This is the time to step into, let me help you understand where I was when I did this, right? Let me help you understand where I was coming from, right? So it's a shared experience, and you only have one facet of it. They only have one facet of it. It's us coming together and sharing the picture that helps them really understand both sides of what the behavior was. That to me is the real aftercare, right? Giving them the whole cinematic picture from your standpoint.
Mm.
Does that land for you?
That's great. So it sounds like you're kind of always in this state of negotiation and working with people through that intention because we've learned a lot of great stories and we've been learning about ethical kink and the idea that some people can maybe use kink in unhealthy ways, anger in unhealthy ways, that type of a thing. I think there's this idea in my mind that once you become this expert in kink, you kind of almost never need to have those conversations anymore. It's just always this perfectly healing thing. But instead, it sounds like you are always hopefully negotiating with people to take care of them as best as possible, but that there still will be questions and ebb and flow. I guess I'm just interested in that. So if you want to go from there.
Yeah, it's a constant negotiation, but you know what? It's not a negotiation in this idea that I'm trying to get what's best for me and they're trying to get what's best for them, because that's what negotiation is, right? In a business, I'm not expected to negotiate on the other person's best interest, right? When we talk about a negotiation, it's how far, how fast, how long, right? And there's the conscious negotiation, there's the unconscious negotiation, because sometimes their mind is saying yes, but their body is saying no. Now there's a negotiation between themselves. Should I or shouldn't I? My body wants it, but my mind is saying we should stop. My mind is saying we should stop, but my body wants it, right? And me going, hey, should I continue? Because the body is saying yes. All the signs are here. Their mouth is saying no. Is this consensual non-consent? Consensual non-consent? If it is, okay, we're a go. But even if it's consensual non-consent and their body is saying no, but their mouth is saying yes, well, then I have to stop actually, because the body keeps the score, right? So the more proficient you become at kink, the more proficient you are at reading body language, the more proficient you are at listening to um, what's called who. It's the power of the divine utterance. And so you get better at that method. You get better at really negotiating within yourself and whether you should have desires in this moment or not, right? And whose desires take priority. Um, what is the framework that we created, and am I operating within that framework? Does that make sense? I am always sitting. This is the negotiation. It's usually me negotiating with myself, them negotiating with us, their self, and us trying to strike a bargain.
And for those that might not know, consensual non-consent, can we define that for people as well?
Yeah, there are some people whose desire is to fight and struggle because they want to be completely subject to another person's desires. So no matter how much they say no, 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 it's really kind of a yes, 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 yes. Right? There's some people who have rape fantasy. There's people who have forced orgasm desires, strangulation desires. We're talking about the edges of kink. right? And why they have it or what purpose it serves is a whole different thing. But the idea of consensual non-consent is they're consenting to not consent. They want to be trespassed upon, right? And that's their thing.
Decided in advance in that clear container, etc.
Yes. And honestly, consensual non-consent is the biggest slippery slope you can have, because once a person consents to consensual non-consent, then it's not consensual non-consent.
Mm.
That's the problem, right? Consensual non-consent often doesn't really take place until there's a relationship involved, right? So if I negotiate consensual non-consent on Tuesday, well, then it probably should happen Friday, because then the person forgot that they consented to the consensual non-consent, and now we can actually take place, and now it can happen. So one of the big things for me, and within the framework of consensual non-consent, is to negotiate the time frame, right? So starting now till Friday, we are in consensual non-consent. Yes. Okay. And so scene's over. Go home, do your thing. We'll go on a date, and now I can do whatever I want in the parking lot. I can do whatever I want in the restaurant. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, however I want, because that's the desire. Most people think consensual non-consent happens now. Doesn't happen now, because then it's not consensual non-consent. There's literally in consenting to you.
Gotcha.
It's complicated. It's complicated.
Interesting. So, in terms of, I was listening to this on one of your other podcasts, the idea of integrating these different desires and interests. You use an acronym of LAMP, if I have that correctly. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, lamp. So lamp is like my magic bullet. Like I use it in so many different ways, but the easiest way is to use it within the framework of the submissive: language, action, meaning, purpose. I get a lot of crap for this, where I get clients who say, I want, what I want to do, and I'm like, you have an idea. I'm like, if you can't ask for it, we can't do it.
Mm.
That's the first consent. If you can't give yourself permission to say it, then I'm not doing it. And I might come back when you can. And people get offended by this. But I'm protecting them. You're not ready. Your body is literally stopping you. Right? So if you can't talk, if you can't say it, then we can't create step-by-step actions, right? To follow up on. And then you're not going to be able to get the meaning, because you're going to be dealing with the transgression. Right? And then what is the purpose of what we did, and how does that fit into your life? How does this work moving forward? Right? So language, action, meaning, purpose. And so for a lot of times when I come into it, I don't use it straight away, but I use it in, hey, what are you looking to do? How can we work together? Oh, well, I just kind of want to do a thing. All right, you're not my client. Right? And then if we can't say it, okay, so here's my ideas. How do we can go through it? Oh, well, I'm not sure how we're going to act on it. I'm not sure if that feels. Well, great. You're not my client. Now we got language, we've got the actions, we've done the actions, and now I'm talking about we need to be able to debrief after, so that we can come back together and talk in more detail and see how this fits in. What meaning did you get from it? What was the feelings that came up from it? If you don't want to have those conversations, you're not my client. Now that we got the meaning out of it, now I need the purpose. Moving forward, what does it look like now that you love this, that you want this, that you need this in your life, that it's meaningful, it's powerful, it's emboldening you? Let's create some structure around it. And what purpose do you think is going to, you don't want to have that conversation? You're not my client. Right? There's 50 million people who will take you and just spank you. You can go to dungeons and do tasters. If you want feelings and sensations, that's great. If you're looking for a transformative interaction that's going to help heal you and bring you into the next level of your life, that's going to take you and prep you so that you're ready to receive all the things that you know is out there, but we're too scared to go on, you're my client. Other than that, you're still here. You're still base. You're still dealing with bodies. This is about beingness, wholeness. Tell me who you want to be with me. Don't tell me what you want to do with me.
Mm.
Right? That's what I need to know. Who do you want to be with me tonight? Right? If this were your last night living, who would you want to be with me? Let's switch it. Who do you want to be for me? Right? That works too, because they may have a deeper sense of submission. So to me, that's where I'm always thinking. And that's how that's the first level of lamp. It goes, there's many different levels.
Orpheus, I'm really interested in actually the ethical use of power.
The ethical use of power.
Yeah. And like the dom and the submissive and who has the power in that relationship, and kind of how do we figure out how we want to surrender to somebody and embrace those desires. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so here's the problem with power. Most people don't have a definition for power. Right? People are like, let's do power exchange. I'm like, first define what power is. Tell me what the definition is, and then I'll decide whether I want to exchange with you. Right? If you had currency that was more valuable than mine, why would you exchange it? Right? So you can't tell me until you tell me the power that what you have, what power is, and we determine what the value is, and what the value is in switching or giving it away, then I don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. So one of my red flags, not red flags, I hate that term. One of my cautionary moments with subs is if the dominant you're dealing with can't explain to you what power is, then you probably shouldn't play with them, or at least don't do power exchange. Okay. Power, quite frankly, within the framework of the United States is defined as the ability to act in accordance with one's will and or desire. So you can see that that's inherently not ethical. Okay. What makes it ethical is to legitimize power is to authorize someone to act in accordance with one's will and or desire. We call that consent. So whatever, as long as I consent to whatever desire you have, it's ethical. The problem is most dominants never talk about what they want. They go, so what do you want to do? What are you into? What are you doing? And I'm centering someone else's experience, so we never get to have an ethical conversation about power. If you're going to take a leadership role, you take it now. Lead the conversation. Demonstrate that you can lead the conversation. Demonstrate that you can be forthright, open, vulnerable. Demonstrate what you want me to do. Show me your leadership model now. Right? While you're not touching me, while you're not stimulated, while you're not seeing my pecs or breasts or whatever. Right? Show me. And if they can't, then to me, that's not leadership. Right? But I have a bit of a larger expectation, right, when it comes to this. So philosophically speaking, that's how it becomes an ethical process, is by authorization. And this is different. To me, it's more powerful than consent. I'll give you an example. Most people conflate consent, consensus, coercion, right, and a few other ones. I have a whole class on this, right? So consent only happens when I go, I want to do X, Y, and Z. Do you consent? You have to have a list of things to consent to. Okay, well, if we're going to do that right now and I only have a flogger, a paddle, and a knife, you can say yes. But we all know that's not how scenes go. What about the hugging? What about the nuzzling? What about changing their position? What about telling them to crawl or kneel or do? Did they consent to that? No, they consented to knives, flogger, and a paddle. So consent is a very slippery slope. Okay? When we get into coercion, it's like you'll get this too. Oh, well, people love flogging. It's great. I know you've never done it before, but everybody loves it. It's really good. You'll enjoy it. Just, if you will, I'll just give you a couple light ones and you tell me if you're into it or not. That's coercion, right? Consensus is, well, everyone else is doing it. I may as well do it. So it's very rare that Dom's going to say, hey, let's step away from everyone else so you're not under the peer pressure, right? I'm not going to tell you what I have with me, but I'm going to tell you what I'm into, what I would like to do with you. Here's a rough outline of what I expect. And in the event that I go too far, too fast, say your safe word and it all comes to an end. Would you authorize me to give you this type of experience? Cool. Right? It's really, I can't make it any more simple than that. I'm telling you, if you don't want to get a consent violation, which is really easy to do, keep dealing with consent as opposed to authorization. Because if somebody's going to be, you touched my buttock and I didn't consent to that. You touched my earlobe, and I've seen that. I've dealt with a sub that if you touch her ear, it's a violation, right? But if you don't ask her if there's any areas that she would consider a violation, she's not going to tell you. You just better hope you don't hit it. So again, you need to have people authorize the experience. So it's more important for a Dom to be in touch with their desires, understand what their fetishes are, their kinks are, and be able to accurately articulate that than get in the moment and feel the urge or the draw or the pull to go into that space and just wing it, see what happens. That's what gets everybody in trouble.
Oh, man, this is so deep. I'm really appreciating actually in this dialogue, and it's making me actually really critically think about my interactions with other people and the ownership that I have in my own experience, but also in the experience that I'm providing for somebody else, like the depth of this. I just want to say thank you for bringing this to this space.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much.
I would love to talk for a minute about the idea of confidence as this relates to all of this. You have such an incredible energy, Orpheus, and a confidence that clearly based on your amazing career, but this ties into that idea of knowing what you want, being able to articulate it being so important. And I'm especially interested in these topics because the main reason I wanted to do this podcast was with Ayce was to combat shame, combat all the shame that we are raised with, whether it be religious, based on gender, sexuality, and of course our world and sex. So the idea of being a wholly sexually embodied person that knows what you want and knows how to ethically and lovingly go get it, seems to me the best goal. But I think for me, there is still a separation from mind and body where I can rationalize that, I love myself and this, I shouldn't feel shame. And yet there still can be this hesitation. There can be, I still feel like I sometimes get like this kind of shame panic response. And so I would love to kind of go around that topic. I know I don't have a specific question, but the ideas of becoming a fully confident and embodied, sexually confident person, even just in how Ayce was introducing you at the beginning, used the words calm, grounded. We're using the words present, this idea of beingness. So I love all of that. How would you riff on that in terms of either healing to this point? How do we leave behind the shame? And again, even if you don't talk about it specifically religiously, but as a culture, we're very weird about sex in a lot of ways. I want to become this fully embodied, confident sexual being. What are some of the ways that you help people get to that point? Or what are some things that helped you get to that point?
Wow, that's a huge question. There's so many things I want to do, and every time I go on a podcast and do this, people go, "We're cutting that out," right? But I think that there's a couple things that people have to know. I am one of the few kink coaches or coaches, period, who don't try to get rid of people's shame because there's so much in kink that revolves around shame. Sometimes that's someone's turn on. Sometimes that's their access to their sexuality. That's where they know the no spot is the shame. Take it away, and now how do they relate to their body? Right? So people can't. I tell my coaches that I don't have very many that I've trained, but the ones that I have, I say, don't take away anybody's shame before you know what it's connected to. It's like a spider web. You pull on one part, it pulls on the entire thing. So you remove it, you just remove the support, right? Because even the bad parts support something that's not. Okay. The other thing that people have to understand is shame and disembodiment are not the same thing. Shame may cause disembodiment, but disembodiment is not the same thing. You were so forthright. May I ask you a question that you can cut out later if you don't feel comfortable?
Sure.
Okay. So you said that there's a differentiation between mind and body. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So at what point in time in your life did you start protecting your body?
I mean, I probably very young. I was molested at a very young age, probably 5 or 6, where there was a violation at that point. So it would take much, much longer before I ever kind of understood that in any way. But I would imagine that's probably been engraved for me from a very long time.
So here's the point. And first of all, thank you for saying that. I appreciate your vulnerability, right? Just want to give you a moment for that.
Appreciate
It's
that.
very courageous. Most people, when they say, I'm trying to feel into my body, or I'm out of my body, or I'm not in touch with my body, it's because their body became the center of a conversation or a center of an action without their consent or their permission, and they're still struggling with it,
Yeah.
right? So this way, it's a protective mechanism where we can say it happened to my body, it didn't happen to me.
Mm,
It happened to my body, it didn't happen to me. And we're still using this defense mechanism, right? And it's preventing us from showing up and being in touch with our desires and allowing our body to be the subject of someone else's desire.
yeah.
Right? So, what do we do in these moments? We say, you know what? Let's do some gratitude. Thank you for doing this for me, for protecting me, for keeping me safe. I don't need you at this moment, but if I do, I know you're here. This process is here. You've saved me. You've kept me on this earth. You've kept me on this planet. You've kept me going all these years. Thank you. Tonight, I don't need it. Today, I don't need it. You're not necessary today. And you know, those todays become tomorrows, and those tomorrows become weeks, and those weeks become months, those months become years, and our bodies become safer to live in,
Mm,
right? It's really about whether your body is a habitable space after being the focus of, uh, let's say, demolition. It's the demilitarized zone. It's not inhabitable anymore. And it's like, how long before we can go back there? We know we have to. It's our homeland, right? It's where we were born. It is us. So reintegration processes are more important to me than dealing with shame or embarrassment.
sure.
It's a process of reintegration. This is also one of those areas of healing because most people come into kink because they need to have their bell rung. Boom, I need to feel that body thing. Please make me feel my body. Make me feel. Remind me that we are one. It's an alignment, an attunement. We're bringing you back into regulation, right? And to help a person stay there, rely there. It is safe. It's okay. Then we move forward. Then to me, then we can do all the shame and talk about these other things. But if you can't, if you're only visiting your body, how can we have a conversation about shame? It's an intellectual pursuit. It never deals with the body.
Mm.
What do you think?
I think that's great. I think for me, I've often kind of run from being in my body by being busy, being distracted, being productive, all these different things. It feels very foreign. And so it's something I'm really working on. And it's very exciting to actually slow down enough to be present with my body, with my feelings, with my emotions. And it can be kind of scary because it kind of feels like, oh, are we safe now? But do you ever find yourself like, even if you had like maybe a really busy day where you can kind of feel like you're almost like up here, you need to bring it back down here? Do you have some exercises that help ground you?
Um, First of all, I as a Buddhist, they make you do it. Well, I have reminders all over my house. Okay, so one of the first things I tell people to do is before you do a session with me, redo something in your house and then leave. Right? Because when you leave, you have your transformation with me, and then you go home, and everything in your home is to change you back into who you were.
Mm.
So change. Change your thing. Put up an altar. Put up a space that represents your transformation, and it can be small and incremental because the change was small and incremental. Right? Come back and let's do something again. But before you do, change something in your house. Right? Now you have two spaces that remind you of who you want to be. Right? Another thing I don't do is I don't keep pictures up of me because I don't want to talk about who I've been. I have places up of where I want to go, what I want to do. Right? I have maps all over my house. I have globes. I have pictures of Buddhas, right? To remind me of what I'm striving for, not who I've been. I know who I've been. I don't need a reminder of that because that takes me back into those problems. It reminds me of what a good time, but that good time was peaked because there was so many bad times around it. Right? So those small incremental changes help to support the transformation that we have. And again, to me, this is really important because we need external stimulus to be able to help facilitate the process. And again, because I'm a Buddhist, I have altars all over the house. I have reminders all over the house. I pay tithes as a reminder of who I am, what I'm doing. Right, I have a Buddha of suffering in my living room, Buddha of prosperity in the other room. I have other altars and all other spaces in my home. Why? Because it needs to be serve as a reminder of who I'm becoming, not who I was. That one's free.
Well, it's so interesting because I woke up this morning and I thought about all these people that are living their lives in jobs that they hate or in relationships that they hate or in locations that they hate. And it's not true to who they are. It's not true to who they want to be, but yet they're stuck in that space. Do you have any wisdom for someone who's kind of living life in a space that isn't authentic to who they are and who they want to be, and how to make those transitions?
Okay, I'll just rip off the Buddha. It is who you are, right? But it becomes difficult as you change because now this environment doesn't facilitate my change. When you become dysregulated, upset, and angry at your job, it's you telling you that this is no longer the place for you. It served its place, just like a crab becoming too big for its shell. Right? Hermit crab gets too big, he has to find another shell, but first it becomes uncomfortable. That discomfort you're feeling is telling you that this is no longer who you are. It no longer supports you in the way that it did at one point in time. Some things you outgrow really fast, and some things take years, months, decades. Right? But the discomfort is you telling you this no longer fits. Time to find a new space. But it's the fear that keeps them from changing. We all know when it starts being shitty and the coping mechanisms aren't working anymore, that this is not the right thing for you, but we go, I'm too scared to try anything else. Right? And when should you start looking for a new job? The moment you felt uncomfortable, you should have started the process to look for a new job, because when it becomes unbearable, it's too late.
Mm.
When it becomes unbearable, you become unemployable. Same thing with a relationship, right? You know when you should leave, but you stay a little bit longer. You know it wasn't going to work, so why'd you stay? I was scared. Fear is the deal killer, right? Living a life of fear is like living a life as a prisoner. You're a prisoner of your own making, and your own prisoner. You're your own warden, right? So to me, we have to recognize that when this is a fear-based response, it's never a good response. Fear is acknowledging the fact that we've overstayed our welcome. We've overstayed the process. We've been here too long. The discomfort lets us know that we should be making plans to move somewhere else, to do something else, to be somewhere else, to be with someone else, or to be alone, right? But I don't like cookie cutter responses where it's like, well, once you start feeling unappreciated, you need to talk to your body. Stop it. You know you better than anyone else. No therapist knows you better than you. You know what I'm saying? So you listen to you, and if you would listen to you, we wouldn't have gotten half the stuff that we got in if we would have listened to our own basic instincts. Right? And so that's really important. Again, if we subscribe to this idea of the body keeps the score, right? Your body's basing its wisdom on all the other pain that you put you through. We forgot up here, but we remember here. And that's why you're feeling anxiety, you're feeling stress. It's like, come on, when you're gonna start making some choices, come on, it's time to start moving, get out the paper. Well, show you how old I am. We still look for jobs in the paper, right? Get on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn, do what you need to do. Start shaking your tree, navigating your network. Start asking your friends if there's any opportunities at their facility. Start doing what you need to do. Start saving, just in case you don't find something right away and you get canned. We don't want to do those things. They're uncomfortable. They don't feel good.
It's like the idea of like, if you try to avoid the hard things, you're going to have a hard life. And if you just do the easy things, like avoiding that discomfort, it's going to lead to a lot of discomfort.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't. And don't be afraid of pain. That's the one thing I think above everything else that kink teach you is not to fear pain. It's to be able to navigate and manage pain. It's a physical metaphor for an intellectual process that we all have to learn to master. Some people are like, I feel uncomfortable. Shut up and suck it up. You're supposed to feel pain. If you weren't supposed to, you wouldn't. You're supposed to feel uncomfortable. If you weren't supposed to, you wouldn't. How to properly use this as a motivation, as an incentive, that's what we really need to talk about, right? I don't like being scared. You're not supposed to like it. You're supposed to respond adequately to it. I'm a real coach. I've been doing martial arts 42 years. I play football, right? I've been coached in boxing. I don't coddle people, right? And so a lot of clients get mad at me because I tell them exactly what the hell they should be doing, and I don't, I get on them a little bit, but somebody's got to talk real to you. You're deluding yourself. Oh, I'm uncomfortable. You're supposed to be uncomfortable. Oh, I'm tired. I got anxiety. You're supposed to be tired. You're supposed to have anxiety. If you weren't supposed to, you wouldn't feel those things. What does it mean to you? LAMP, language, action, meaning, purpose. What does the feeling mean? What does the fear mean? Find the meaning in it, right? Work with it. It's going to supply you with the roadmap so you know what your purpose is. That meaning brings you back to your purpose, right? Feel it. Stop avoiding it. Stop running from it, right? Go run to meet it. You know what I'm saying? All right, I'm stop riffing on that.
I love that though.
You can riff all day in my world, man. I love
it. I'm just an old guy who sits here and just jaded. Get off my lawn.
But it is true. We can find a lot of pain when we're trying to avoid feeling feelings.
The worst pain I felt is not having feeling. You ever been numb? That to me is, you don't know how comforting pain is until you don't feel anything. I was in a relationship and it went sour, and I went through this anger and this fear, and then one day I just didn't feel anything, and that hurt worse than anything else. Because there's nothing anyone can say. It's over. It's done. That relationship is a carcass. I don't feel it anymore because I've shed that part of me, and now I feel nothing. And to me, that's painful because you want to. I want to feel something, and you don't. Yeah.
Something else we've talked about here is how when you kind of go through a healing journey, I kind of had this idea that I would suddenly be like so tough and I would like nothing would bother me anymore. But it was the opposite because I was starting to feel all the things I'd been numbing myself to. And so it can feel very vulnerable and kind of scary, like you're a little bit on a rockier ocean, but you're on the ocean, it's like the ship is not supposed to be at port. You're supposed to be on, out in the seas. And so it could be very exciting. But the alternative being you're not feeling anything. So that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. It takes more to fill up your cup.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's like, to me, when you get a healing journey, you just get a bigger cup. I can take more, right? It's what used to overwhelm me, is no longer at that level. Now my cup is bigger. I'm still going to feel it, but there's just more and more and more and more that I can fill it up. And that's a Lao Tzu always talks about the way, I guess the way I kind of take it is this idea when people say I'm too much. It's not that, you know, that I'm too much. It's just that my cup is just too big for you. You don't have enough to fill me, right? You're not capable of receiving all that I am, right? Get a bigger cup. It's not my job to reduce myself in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Grow stronger.
Yeah. Expand your
Don't
capacity.
task me with being less.
And that's why I like when you connect with people that have gone through a lot of a healing journey. It kind of feels like you both have so much space to hold for each other, and you connect on so much of a realer level than just, you could take up more space. I love that.
Yeah, I take up all the space. You know, I'm a Dom 24 hours a day. Most people are Dom because they have a sub. I'm a Dom all the time. I take up space, and if they don't like it, move, leave. You don't deserve to be here. I really have zero cares for people who don't live in their purpose.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Go find a purpose, go find your thing, you know, derive your path in life and then meet me on it. You know, other than that, but I will not reduce myself in any way, shape, form, or fashion for anyone. Ever. You know? And again, I get oh, you're cocky, you're brash, you're best. You call it what you want. I call you not ready to receive all that I am. You know, that's all it is. I got main stage energy because I'm the star of my play, and you're a walk on person. You're either a co star or a walk on, or you're an extra, right? So either step into main stage energy, like be my co star, or make an appearance and leave. But I will not receive scripting from someone from an inferior player in my life, right? And I definitely don't take comments or even advice from people who are not living their truth, right? I think that that's one of the confusing things is we have people in our lives who we trust and we love and we value their opinion for what? What have they done to show you that they're capable of giving you good advice? You can't tell me how to make $1 million if you've never made $1 million. You can't tell me I have a happy relationship if you haven't had a happy relationship. If longevity is the point of my relationships, what's the longest relationship you run? 2 years. Well, then don't talk to me. 2 years, you don't even have the same problem. I'm in 30 years. I got 35. I got two 16s. Don't give me advice. You're a day player on this, right? Stop taking advice from people who are not qualified to give it, right? That's part of the anxiety because it's cognitive dissonance. Well, Fran told me this, but I think that they should have never opened their mouth. They're not qualified. Find a coach that meets your criteria. Find a therapist that has went to school and has some life skills, right? I was listening. I'm on one today. I was listening to NPR and I was listening to this person talk about long-term relationships and they're 25. You ain't even lived. You haven't even lived. You ain't no damn. What you been dating since you were 15 and now 10 years? You gonna give me 10 years of advice? You know what I mean? Like that. Yeah, talk to a 21-year-old. Great. You know what I mean? You're great. But you can't give a 50-year-old advice on how to have a long-term marriage. You can tell me what the doctors say. You can recite the DSM. You can give me advice from, but you can't give me lived experience advice. And to me, that's what a coach does. Lived experience. So I've been doing kink longer than most people have been alive. Right? I've got a partner who's 30, and I've been doing this 30 years. When they were born, I started this. Right? So to me, I have a lot of lived experience to be able to kind of work with this person and take them in the direction that feels good to us. And I'm very confident about that. Right. But there's people that I know that have been doing it 40, 50 years, longer than I've been alive. Who do you think I go to for advice? Right. So we have to look at there's an academic component, which people can get at a very young age, but the lived experience, the practice. What is your practice? How long have you been doming? and for doms to operate within the framework of their expertise and to not overshoot. That's how people get hurt, right? Don't practice on a client, right? I'll pause. Marcus, are you a gamer?
Yeah. My degree is in game programming.
Okay, so I actually wrote a book. I never released it on magic, the intersection of magic and game theory.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite. Like, I still read it myself because I love it, right? Um, but you know how if you were sitting there looking at the keys or looking at the buttons, you've already lost.
Mm-hmm.
Too many people are looking at the buttons in their life.
Ooh.
They're sitting there going button push. Oh, it didn't work out. Button push. No, you've got to be ahead of the game. You have to be anticipating what the next move is. You're playing 4 and 5 steps ahead of your opponents, right? And so you're dominating the game and your body is following your intellectual lead, and it almost becomes flow state at some point in time where it's kind of all one process. It's all happening simultaneously and you're actually not thinking.
Mm.
Finding that flow state within the framework of our lives is what everyone should be striving for, right? But we get so busy on doing step 1, step 2, step 3 that you're not actually living. Same thing with dancing. If you're doing the steps, you're not dancing,
Yeah.
right? If you're doing flogging, you're not flogging. If you're doing spanking, you're not spanking, right? This is an entire dance, right? So you have to envision the whole thing, space, time, the physicality, but more than anything, who I want to be with them is going to dictate how they respond to me. In anticipating how they're going to respond to me, I'm able to come up with scenarios and different ways of being in this moment. This is why the archetypes work, because archetypes manifest when the stimulus is present. So if I present dominant, most people will present submissive. If I present submissive, most people will present dominant, right? You can never have kids find a lost kid and put on your best version of father or mother. Because the stimulus is present, you're going to respond in kind. That's how most people work. Okay? If you're an aggressive player, most people will become a submissive player. That's why we dominate certain people. Very rarely do you meet someone in a game where they meet you with the same level of dominance. That's why there's so few people at this elite level that compete for money with this. They can meet each other from these things and see who wins. But everyone else, think about all the bodies that they've laid to waste because they were so dominant and that person unconsciously became submissive, right? For those 100 people at a gaming conference that are at the elite, millions have fallen. Okay? For you to be in this space, for you to navigate sex, sexuality, intimacy, and life in general, how you present will determine 90% of your interactions. So know who you want to be with this person to produce the outcomes that you're looking for. Right? And there's a plethora of archetypal narratives that you can embrace in order to produce those outcomes. But because we don't know what the outcomes are, we don't know who we need to be. That's where the desire component comes in. What do you got? What do you guys think?
I think that's fantastic. I did want to ask you about a quote of yours from another podcast, if you don't mind. So it'll be a little bit of a jump here.
Sure.
But one
Let's rip them off.
thing, so one thing you had said is, all I knew is I wanted to perform. I loved women, right? And I had a propensity for this. And I wanted to focus on that idea of loving women for a second, because we're in this interesting discussion in the world about masculinity and toxic masculinity. And I think there's this pressure from certain people that are out there in the sphere that are motivating these men that make it seem like it has to be this dominating thing. It has to be this dominating women. It almost feels like they hate women and yet they have to feel this control over women. There's so many unhealthy dynamics. And I feel like you're such a beautiful example of a healthy masculinity. And so I just love that quote that we're literally talking about what could involve spanking women. And yet the first thing you're saying is like, I saw this cool new thing. I also really love women and bringing that together. So I just wanted to let you riff on that for a minute, this idea of a healthy masculinity and love for women in this space. And of course, beyond, in a world where we have a lot of really unhealthy representations of masculinity.
Mm, mm. Wow, y'all trying to get me in trouble on this one.
Oh.
So let me give you an unpopular opinion, and I think it's the thing is it's accurate. It's just an unpopular opinion. Masculinity is a barometer by which a society measures the value of a male-bodied individual. Period. Society establishes the criteria and then says, based on these actions, how do you measure up? The criteria is usually um, based on what the societal values are. So if you have a warmongering society, the more you can fight, the more you can oppress, the more you can acquire, the more you can gain, the more masculine you appear. This makes you great on a battlefield. It makes you horrible in relationships. The same things that make you a great football player may make you a horrible partner, right? The thing that makes you an alpha competitor may make you a horrible person to be in relationship with. So when we talk about toxicity, we have to talk about the societal narrative that is dictating what masculinity is, because everyone has a desire to appease the parental narrative. We're all bought into the societal contract. We're all raised to be a part of it. Okay. So that being said, I don't feel like there's toxic men, there's a toxic society that has enculturated men into believing that the only way they can live up and fulfill their purpose is to fulfill the narrative created hundreds of thousands, hundreds of years ago. And they don't know how to let go, establish their own criteria, and use their own metric by which they determine masculinity. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That to me is the promise. Fear of letting go, fear of standing out, fear of stepping away from the societal narrative. Also, the pain of regret. Shit, I did all those things. I can't believe that I treated people that way. I mean, I thought I had to. I thought that that's what I was supposed to do. I thought that that's who I was supposed to be. And now I realize for myself that I was wrong. And that dealing with that pain and that hurt of showing up in that way, it's easier just to stay with the modality than it is to have your awakening. To me, that's really the problem. And it requires compassion, because the same societal pressures that produce racists and bigots produce date rapists, right? Molesters. It's a symptom of society. And they were children when they were indoctrinated, enculturated. They didn't have the protections, or they had a teacher who was so indoctrinated that they passed it on, or subject them to it, right? So when we talk about toxicity, it's not toxic masculinity, it's not toxic femininity,
Mm-hmm.
it's toxicity. It's a toxic culture that produces these things. Society says what the values are, and if you want to be successful, here's how you need to be. If you want to be accepted, here's how you need to be. And they're playing along. How do we teach people how to let go? Another thing of Buddhism, letting go, not holding on. It's not serving you, it's not helping you. You don't need it anymore. You call yourself a grown man, grown woman, grown person, grown this day, let it go. This is also why, and I'm just going to champion my LGBTQIA plus people. I think that part of the issue with trans people that society has with trans people is for some reason they learned how to opt out. What do you mean you get to stop being in your programming?
Mm.
I don't get to do that. Why do you get to do that? You don't get to be free because I don't get to be free.
Mm-hmm.
Gay people get to come out of the closet. What do you mean you get to be you and live as you? I don't get to do that. I can't love who I want to love, live how I want to live, change my body to fit my internal narrative. How dare you leave me behind? I'm alone. And when you think about it from that perspective, you might have a little more compassion. We might be a little more compassionate. That someone in bumfuck Kentucky, excuse my language, is around a bunch of people that if they let go, they're going to be beat up. They're going to be fired. They're going to lose everything. And so they have to keep it up. And then they see you. It's like, why do you get to do it? I don't.
Yeah.
If I can't do it, nobody can do it. I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. It's toxic masculinity because it's a survival mechanism. And you have to learn how to survive without it, but many people can't. Right? I happen to have come into Hollywood and have a mentor who wears skirts and dresses and lipstick and big hair and told me if you can't play with a man in the same way you can play with a woman, then you can't play. Right? If you can't step into being human with another human, then you can't play. Or you can't play here. You can't play on these stages. I got challenged early on in my development. So I don't want to say that I'm healthier. I had an out in a way that hundreds of thousands of other people will never have. Right? So to me, I'm not a shining example. I'm an anomaly. Right? Because I got an opportunity, a once in a lifetime chance. I got a chance that other people will never have. Right? And so we have to have compassion for the people who are left behind in the prisons of their own making, the prisons of their societal indoctrination, their complacency. And to me, that's really important.
Yeah, and I think that's why for queer people, like we never want to go back in the closet. It's like even though there's the abuse and the cruelty, and you can be treated differently at your job and all these different things, or lose family over it, it's like I'm not going back. I like the freedom, the bigger cup, all of these things. With masculinity, I think there's so many overt ways that, of course, we're so hard on women and expect them to look a certain way. But I think I've realized more and more as the years go on just how rigid we are with men too. And I used to imagine it like you're playing a game of darts. So you throw the game, throw it at the board. Let's say I'm a pretty fit man. Oh, there's a guy who's bigger than me. Okay. Throw in the dart. Let's say I've got a decently low voice. Oh, there's a guy with a lower voice than me. Like there's always this tighter ring. And when there is this coming out of the closet thing, it was almost like, oh, I don't have to play darts. I not only don't have to play darts, I can leave this bar and walk across the street. There's a different thing going on over there. It was this freedom of like, not only do I can stop playing this game that is so hard and is all that people are known to kind of measure up against. So it's like, even if you're in these super straight spaces, there is this endless ranking up that queer people, I think in a lot of ways are kind of like, they're not playing anymore because they don't have to. And it frees up so much mental energy that, yeah, it's like we're not going back. But I really appreciate your perspective of really focusing on that compassion for those that haven't been shown a way out of that.
Yeah. And honestly, it's up to us to lead the way. I'll say something I've never said in public. I more than likely would identify as queer because most people don't consider me straight, right? But it's more effective for me to continue to present this way for other people who are straight to be, oh, there's another accessible way of being in the world versus being just another queer person. You see what I'm saying? So it's like they're like, well, if you play with men, then you're gay. Well, I'm not gay, right? And it's like, but I do scenes with, if you pay me money, I do this, right? Do I mind having intimate conversations and da 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 da? Not at all, right? People have, since I've been in kink, have said you're not straight. Back then, there was no such thing as queer, right? But for me, it's better for me to work from the inside, the framework of inside, because I still get to go to the locker rooms. I still get to be in the gymnasiums. I still get to sit at the conference table. I still get to use my privilege of pseudo masculinity and pseudo straightness to be able to have an end to people who are open to, who are looking for this, who provided. I can provide someone else with the same narrative that I was provided with. It's up to each person to leave the door open for someone else, right? And I think that once we kind of free ourselves from the binds, we get so far away from those people that we're like, we'll leave those cis guys over there, right? Because they're cis and I'm queer. Like, no. Just like you were over there and someone held the door open for you, you got to hold the door open for someone else. And it's dangerous. I know that. And it can cause you physical and mental, emotional harm, economic harm. But someone took the time to do it for me, and I have to do. Each one must teach one, right? So I still present this way. I've always wear men's and women's clothes are clothes to me. I've never cared, but I'm still masculine presenting enough to be able to be a conduit for other people. Is what I'm saying.
Sure. That's great. Use that privilege. I love that.
I hope that wasn't too far off the mark on the
No,
question.
that's you. That's absolutely it. I just think that and what I love about how you talked about it is that there are probably so many people that are feeling trapped that would love to get more exposure to this, but it can otherwise seem, you know, that just really scary in this world to lose kind of the rubric. And that's, I think, with a lot of the growth that I've done is I've lost my rubrics in a sense. Like I was very religious growing up, not religious now. And, but I basically lost my rubric for judging, am I being a good person within this particular system? And so you just kind of can find, we like some kind of rubric for order in our lives, but you also want to be able to get rid of one if it's unhealthy or whatever that might be. And so you have to be ready to kind of have a whole new way of assessing your life. If you're used to like, I want to try to be the most masculine person in the room, what if you get rid of that? It's quite a bit of change. There's a certain way you're
Yeah.
just trying to measure up.
It's also a cultural thing because I think it's ingrained in most Black people, because all skin folk and kinfolk, but that Underground Railroad thing, like no person left behind, is really, leaving doors open, helping the next person up, and everybody don't want to go. And some people need to be like, look, called out and like, look, this is who you are, and I know you feel like it's more comfortable for you to stay, but it would be better for you to go. It would be better for you to change. It would be better for you to wake up from this nightmare that you're engaging in, right? I know it's scary, but I've done it. We're all like the guy in the Matrix who's looking for Neo,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're going back and we're waking people up and from their dream. And some of those people were in a dream and some of those people were in a nightmare, right? But the point is, you still have to wake up to the reality of your situation and deal with it, right? Yep.
Yeah, talk about not wanting to be numb to it, but yeah.
Yeah,
Whew.
exactly. Woo! I hope this is some good stuff for you
This is
guys.
some great stuff. So, I mean, you've had such an amazing career. What are some things that excite you nowadays? What are some of your areas of focus these days in 2025 for Orpheus Black?
I'm back at school, so I'm about to graduate. So I'm going to be a behavioral health support specialist specializing in LGBTQIA plus community and strategizing to help them advocate for themselves in healthcare, in substance use disorder, also being able to work with unhoused populations to help get them into spaces that they need to be, but also working with people who have drug and substance use disorder who want to go back into relationships. So this is kind of like a new addition to my practice. Helping people navigate these spaces is really important to me. I still teach. I'll be on Virgin ship cruise lines, teaching kink and doing shows.
Wow.
I'll be at Oklahoma Leather Fest, right? I'll be at DomCon LA and possibly DomCon Louisiana. So I still teach. I'm still teaching, going out there doing it. Also, I may have some teachings coming up for Queer Spirits. So, which is a organization that works with specifically queer LGBTQIA plus community, talking about polyamory. So the things that are interesting me now is really being able to open my doors to a wider swath of people who are looking to transform and feel empowered in their lives, not just in their sexuality.
That's fantastic. So what are some of the best ways to find you, follow you, social media, that type of thing, contact you?
Yeah, if you want to work with me, orpheusblack.com. That's ORPHEUSBLACK.com. You can also send us an email direct at admin@orpheusblack.com. And then I'm Orpheus Black, this guy, on all social media. So, so Instagram, IG, so on and so forth. I don't post much anymore, but I'm going to start again. And actually, we're going to be starting submissive and dominant courses that we were doing for a while online, which are weekends. So we have, I think it's a set of 16 courses, 4 units apiece. And then you can get certified to be an Orphic tradition coach.
Very cool. Well, I'll be kind of blowing up your social media because I'll be posting highlights from this incredible conversation onto our social media and tagging you on it. So I do want to throw it to you, Ace. Anything you want to say as we wrap up here?
Just deep gratitude, Orpheus, for you to create safe spaces for us to explore who we are and who we want to be. You were a major player in my coming out journey and supporter in that. So I just want to say thank you for all the wisdom that you've brought to this place, and also just the ability to be present with us and what's going on in our world today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. You know I show up for you, Ace.
I really love you. You're so good.
Likewise.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today, Orpheus Black. And we'll catch up with everyone on the next episode of Holy Unapologetic.